In the room, we have Kisumu East MP, Shakil Shabir.
Yes.
Karibu Sana.
Asante sana.
You're not a stranger to the room.
No.
Thank you.
Much.
Thank you so
Part
much.
and parcel of Kisumu now.
Part and parcel of Kisumu.
The room.
The room
Not
is
me.
part and parcel. The room is part and parcel of Kisumu, indeed. Karibu Sana, as we have this conversation also on whether Kenya is ready for another Eurobond, we're also joined by economist Churchill Ogutu, who is IC Asset Manager for Mauritius. I think that's really interesting. Maybe you give us a little bit of that information. But welcome to the Situation Room. We're having this conversation this morning. Quite a lot of details involved in this. The question being this morning, is Kenya ready to go this way again? So a little bit of background with that one, Jiro.
Yeah, the background is that we've been running a campaign called the Okoa Uchumi Coalition campaign. And the reason we felt pressed to do this is because obviously Kenya is facing a debt crisis due to borrowing expensively, irresponsibly for projects that don't have returns, and a lack of accountability. Now, we also know that with commercial borrowing, since between 2008 and 2018, external loans to lower and middle income governments increased exponentially, with private lending going up by 240%. This has been occasioned by cheap credit in the Western markets. Now, as African countries have borrowed, many of them have gone into debt crisis, debt distress. We saw the recent case of Zambia, and of course, we have our own example here. Bringing it home, Kenya is now floating its fifth Eurobond. We've had 4 Eurobonds, and we have concerns as a coalition. I think the Auditor General has raised concerns, Parliament has raised concerns around those Eurobonds. The first Eurobond, there is some funds that were not couldn't be traced. I don't know if that was ever resolved. The use and application of the Eurobonds was not clear. Eurobonds, by their very nature, are not based on a strong accountability framework like multilateral borrowing would be. Eurobonds assume that the government is going to comply with its laws and is going to be accountable. So, these creditors don't ask those questions. They don't ask those questions, and when it comes to the crunch, you must pay. Government has not been able to renegotiate the Eurobond terms and repayments, because if you open up those contracts, the penalties are really, really high.
Right.
So because Eurobonds, we have heavy Eurobonds, there are pertinent questions we must ask as the government seeks to float a fifth Eurobond, which they are calling the Sovereign Green Bond Climate Finance Bond. And this seems, I'm reading Honorable Shakil's text. It seems set to go ahead. So we have to ask the question, have we learnt our lessons? Have we resolved the opacity around the Eurobond? Or is this more money designed to be stolen?
Even before we get to whether we're going to be able to handle it, if the country is going to be able to handle it, maybe Churchill, I think it's necessary to say, okay, Eurobond, explain it. What exactly does it mean? And what exactly does it provide for the country in the first place? Because this could be Greek to very many people. What does it mean? It could be translated as the country is getting more money, period. What does it mean?
Okay, thanks. In its essence, a Eurobond is a bond that is issued not locally, but it's issued in a different jurisdiction. Here we are looking at Ireland and London. That's where all the Eurobonds that have been issued by Kenyan government have been issued from. You find that locally, in any given month, the government issues bonds but are domiciled locally. But now Eurobonds are a bit different. They are now domiciled internationally, so that's where the difference is. Eurobonds, nothing to do with the currency euro, but it's just that it's offshore, it's not onshore, unlike the domestic bonds. Obviously, what does it do? It's like a blank check, unlike the multilateral loans from the World Banks, the IMF. There are some conditions, or some of these loans are targeted towards specific projects. You might be building a hospital somewhere, so there's a loan that is pegged towards that hospital that you're going to build. So those are project loans. But now with Eurobonds, those are now a blank check that the government receives. How it spends the money, that's where Wanjiru was trying to point out that there's been a bit of some opacity where the money ends up.
Churchill, what's a bond?
A bond.
Yes, what is it?
Okay, let me try to put it in simple language.
Yes.
It's different. It's somehow like a loan. I know people understand the concept of a loan. You go to a bank, you receive money, and then you pay over a period of time the interest and also the principal component. But with the bond, the same principle happens, whereby
Is it a financial instrument?
it's a financial instrument,
Yes.
whereby if you take if the government or a lender issues a bond for say 5 years, they'll pay periodic what's called coupon payments. It might be every 6 months, it might be every 12 months for the duration of the bond. And then at the end of the term of the bond, the lender will repay back the borrower. The borrower will repay back the lender the full amount. That's
It
principle.
sounds like a promissory note.
No, you know, it's a bond. Starts from the word to bind.
Yes.
The government binds itself.
Yes.
The borrower binds himself. So gives a bond. Bond. Shylock took a bond from...
City move.
No. Shylock gave a bond to, what was this guy's name?
Brutus.
Huh?
Was it Brutus or who's?
No, in
In Shakespeare's
Shakespeare, come on.
and the Pound of Flesh.
Who
Yes,
was it?
the Merchant of Venice.
Venice, yes.
So Shylock gave a bond. So bond has terms. Means actually the bond is a very old term utilized normally by governments and when even in the olden times when a state wanted to go to war with another, it would go to Spain would go to the Pope for a bond and others. So this bond is an old term that we bind ourselves to the following conditions to pay. Promissory notes are another form of an agreement to bind. That promissory notes have certain other things, but the bond is an old term.
It's intractable, meaning
You remember Shylock went for his pound of flesh.
Flesh, yeah.
So it's a bond.
Okay.
So
So
you understand? It binds you.
It's
Maybe
unbreakable.
Unbreakable, and sometimes something can incur certain charges, certain things that are not in a normal loan situation, like vultures, the vulture fund, the vulture. You know what you call financial vultures. So if you don't meet the bond, the vultures come in, buy that bond.
Yes.
And it's traded on the market.
okay. So does the government need to then get permission to get these bonds? And we're saying, when I say permission then from Parliament, permission then, or in terms of accountability, is it must the government show accountability for these bonds? Because essentially, if it's a blank check, you're going out to get however much money that you need or however much money that you want. Then must you show what you've done with it in the previous one? How did it perform? To say that we can now go and get another one to be able to perform certain needs. Let's take the last one, for example, Eurobond 4. What was done with it? Are there accountability measures that have to be put in place? Or in the nature that it's a blank check and you can do whatever you want, same thing for accountability, you must not then say what it is that you're doing with it? Churchill?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you start with Eurobond 4, that bond was issued around mid-June. And specifically, the funds came in the third week in June. So technically, we had just 1 week to utilize that monies. Remember, the financial year starts in July
Yes.
and ends in June. So if we receive the money in the third week in June, so ideally that money had to be disbursed within that 1 week because it was issued in that financial year. Unless now, so the question is, and that's the 105 billion shilling question. On a monthly basis, the Treasury issues what in the Kenya Gazette a net revenue and expenditure statement whereby it gives the previous month the disbursements that went to ministries, departments, and agencies. For the month of June, it was never gazetted, and that's on record. So we are not able to see whether these monies that came in, if we can now be able to connect the dots, whether they were disbursed. So that's another thing. I think it was an oversight. I don't know whether it's an oversight or it was something that was preempted. But having said that, that's ultimately whereby people who look at trying to understand how the monies were disbursed, you can be able to connect the dots just looking at that statement. Yeah.
I'm actually in shock. It was not gazetted. That's a violation of the law. Honorable Shakir. Where is Parliament
The month of June.
in our public interest?
Firstly, to be cynical, I'm an accountant by training. I can give you any figure you want to make. We massage figures. So those
As accountants or as Parliament?
as accountants
Or both.
and as Parliament.
Why do you think they are referred to as bean counters?
And as Parliament?
My late grandfather told me, don't be an accountant because they're fiddlers, and don't be a lawyer because they're liars. His grandchildren are either accountants or lawyers. Now, what I'm trying to suggest is this. Firstly, those figures, even if they do come, you're probably going to find somebody who's just sat down and done it. And I'm going to make a confession on this television. I used to be the senior manager of Diamond Trust, and every month our branch had to make a report to the central bank, and that required so much background and etc. We decided to be always the first. So I used to sit down and you look at it, and I just speculate, and I put it down and send it. They never found out. The situation is, these are figures that are put in. Nobody actually looks at them. Yeah.
But isn't that
I don't know.
Parliament's
Yeah,
job?
but yeah,
No,
why?
I'm
is the
coming to
question.
that.
Okay.
I am coming to that. Now, Parliament's job, they're meant to send us those figures. That statement is put in the Gazette, is meant to come to us. Firstly, what happens is when your budget policy statement comes out, and we go back to this thing, that platform that we're building, you see, the budget process starts a long way back. Once you've done that budget policy statement and it's been passed, you've literally given the executive a blank check. They can go and borrow because they say, we told you wanted to do A, B, C, and D. Yeah? And we haven't got the funds right now, but we're going to go borrow. You're giving them blank check. The only correction of that blank check was meant to be the debt management unit. You were not. The debt management unit is a non-entity. It doesn't work. In Treasury, you're a very good economist, but people don't like you. They send you to the first floor, and the debt management unit, and it's sitting there. The poor guys who got nothing. The one thing I must say, I've been to Treasury a number of times. We have some brilliant economists, brilliant, World Bank standards come from there. We go to other countries and do a great job, but over here we are frustrated by those who are superior to us, have been put in our, and they are Form 4 failed economist or whatever, and they know what they have to do is I have been told I must give so much money to so and so. So unfortunately, that is one case that we have. Now, what we are trying to do is we're saying the budget process should have been very much in a control of Parliament. Very much in control of Parliament. It hasn't been.
Why?
Because the information doesn't come through in time, and also we are, in the pocket of the executive. Because it comes to you. I know one case, and I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. It comes to you, the minister and others come to you in a workshop or somewhere and say, listen, we've sent you the supplementary budget. The boss says, pass it without changing a full stop.
So it's left to you to figure out who the boss is. Huh?
Yeah. No, you have to, it's without passing a full stop, without changing. So when we change, and we did one or two times, remember their interest on bread and A and B, and the last minute, as the report is being read out, somebody is there telling the chair to change and put the last minute. I mean, the former chair has told me this. And so sometimes, and what happens is we are held at ransom. Yeah?
Mheshimiwa, there's something that I want to ask here.
So you're told, pass it.
Even
we don't pass it.
I understand
and
what...
let me finish.
Yes.
Our minority interest is not noted on that objection.
Yes.
Even if you
is
raise
the
something,
vote,
Siti,
is
just
the vote
Siti,
recorded?
Siti, go ahead with your
Who
question.
decides? Is it the committee or is it in plenary?
Siti, can you just ask your question first?
Can we trace who approves and who doesn't approve in Parliament? If Kenyans were to say, who said yes?
In the committee, the committee report goes, and then the committee report can be altered by the majority in Parliament, and normally it is because people have been talked to.
So does it mean that as civil society we should try to be in the room when the committee is meeting? Is that possible? Can we petition? How do we hold Parliament accountable?
I think you wanted to say something before I say that.
Yes, I did. What I wanted to ask you was, Mheshimiwa, you see, there is something called public good. It's not really very complicated. And it's something that you as parliamentarians are custodians of, okay? Are we saying that it isn't possible to have a discourse with these mandarins who come to you in the middle of the night and in workshops to talk to you, tell them, folks, listen, we understand what you're trying to do, but this thing you're trying to achieve is best achieved if we follow this route. Do you have an opportunity to have that conversation? Because what they want, one can understand, but the way they want you to go about it gets us to where we're always talking about this debt we can't seem to get out of and what have you. Are you in a position to have these conversations with them? To say, folks, let's just give you our input so that you understand why it is we're taking this position. And if you are able to have such a conversation, does it ever have an impact?
When we start looking at the individual items on the budget policy statement,
yes.
Now you've been told that we must do everything. So we say, no, we don't want, for argument's sake, tax on bread. We're not going to have it. We're not going to have it. The only thing that works, and there where the parliamentarians are all together, and that's what we need, is CDF. You touch CDF, my friend. It doesn't matter who you are. You touch CDF and you will hear. But the rest, for some reason, it just goes through, and you can talk till you're blue. You're sitting in a finance committee, and there's a chair, and things have been planned out already, and you are going to object, and you object, and you're given the right to object, and you say, okay, I'm going to be in minority. Then it goes to the House. We make the report, minority interest, it goes to the House, is passed. So the situation basically is that we have failed in that process. That's why we're asking that something must be there. Now, what is that? You see, when you as civil society, no, not civil society, the people come late, when the budget is being read,
it's too late.
It's too late.
This is the time.
You need to be at the budget policy statement. You want to work, and this is the platform that we are now working on, that you start your lobbying.
To start lobbying, because we're essentially saying that the people who've been given the job clearly are not able to do that. We're going to go to a break in a minute, so maybe we'll save the next few questions until we take a look at weather and traffic. But here we are saying, essentially, call on the people to come in and lobby because we're in a tight situation and we're not able to do it on our own.
No, they're
Yeah,
saying
that we are not overseeing
As we
Parliament
should.
as they make the ultimate
But
decision
no,
about what gets
has
funded.
Mheshimiwa not repeatedly said we have failed, we have failed?
We
I've
have
heard him
failed.
Many times.
I've heard him.
The
I've
question
heard
is
him.
then, if there is a set of people who have failed, what then is the next action?
After the break, maybe he can tell us when he talks about the lobbying, who he thinks could effectively pursue this course of action.
Indeed. Studio today with you, Ndroko CT Muga. Our guest host for today, Wanjiro Gikonyo from the Institute of Social Accountability. And we're also joined in the studio as we're asking the question this morning, is Kenya ready for Eurobond 5? Churchill Ogutu is an economist with us today, as well as Kisumu East MP Shakil Shabir, as we continue with that conversation.
Yeah, so government proposes to float the 5th Eurobond looking at climate change. It's a green bond, so which is very compelling. But we've just found out that government did not had 1 week to spend the previous Eurobond of 105 billion, has not accounted for that, failed to publish a gazette. So there are violations around, and they floated that Eurobond in June. And now a few months later, we are floating another one. What should we be looking at? Is government ready? Should Parliament consider approving this Eurobond, or should they push back at this
Do
point?
we have a say?
Even before we get that, let's look at technically what, should
What
government
exactly
even
should be
consider?
lined up?
Yes.
What should be lined up from the beginning, Churchill? If a government responsible for this action, what should they be looking at before we find out whether they can or cannot?
I think the sequence of this budget process, as had been talked earlier on, is that it's been approved by the Parliament before now it's even executed by executive. So even the figures that we are looking at, even for the current financial year, there will be another Eurobond issue even in the current financial year. This one for the green bond is for the next financial year, not even this financial year. And this one is 124 billion. Separately, Treasury had came up with something called liability management operations, whereby they are looking at their stock of commercial debt. Commercial debt does not even include Eurobonds only. There's also syndicated loans. So the syndicated loans that they want to refinance is around 351 billion. So basically, with syndicated loans, the interest is a bit variable. It keeps on changing. At some point, it had an interest rate of 8% during just before pre-COVID levels, because it's benchmarked on US rates, and then there's some additional premium on top of that. So it was coming to around 8%. Now it's come down because of the US rates where it has come down. So the rationale was that we need to refinance those expensive syndicated loans, but with Eurobond. So it's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, because ultimately, instead of having, if this comes to fruition, this liability management operation, which is expected to be done in this current financial year, so we're looking at close to 471 billion issues of Eurobond.
Churchill, just hold this thought. Yeah, the deck chairs on the Titanic, I understand. We are now borrowing money that is less expensive than the ones we borrowed before. Are we borrowing to pay the expensive debt, or are we just piling a debt upon another debt?
Now, this one is more of reorganizing this liability management.
Yes, now,
yes,
explain this reorganizing. What are we reorganizing?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
May I? Last year, the minister came to this committee, both budget and gave us a very thing, how we're going to rationalize, get rid of our commercial loans, and we are going to do A, B, and C, and this is how we're going to reduce our payments of interest, etc. A very simple solution I will show you. A very simple example. I have 4 loans. I have a loan of 100,000, 1 million, and another loan of 900,000, another loan of 3 million, for argument's sake. On the 3 million loan, I'm paying, say, 150,000 a month. On the 1 million loan, I'm paying maybe 180,000 a month, and another 100,000. So we're paying about 350,000 a month. right? And your total loans are about 4 million. So, and you see that this 350,000, you've been taking the loans and the payments are coming up. I say to yourself, now listen, A, these loans are expensive, and B, the installments are high because some are short term. So we come to you and say, listen, we have to make this thing. Let us borrow 6 million. 5 million of it immediately we will liquidate those loans. And the 6 million we'll borrow over the next 24 months. And our installment will be 200,000. It's a simple calculation, simple.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. But we cannot pay those loans first until we borrow. Makes sense. Well, I promise you by the end of this thing, this will be sorted out. Rationalize this thing, this and that. Actually, we wanted him actually impeach the guy. And so a couple of us decided to put a motion for impeachment of the CS. If you're hearing, I remember I told you this. Then, of course, it didn't happen. The money never went where it was going to go. In the December, following up, he came for the supplementary. And we asked him, what happened? Oh, no, we're sorting it out. So you're lying to Parliament. You have lied under oath to Parliament. And then you're saying, these things need time, right? So when you need time, these things fall out. When we go to look at the figures, I walked to Treasury. Me, a member of Parliament, a senior member of the Finance Committee, everything else. It took me 3 hours to get a document that is meant to be available.
In the public domain.
At this moment, they keep telling us, we've sent you the document, and in the Finance Committee, I say, here's the document you sent. Look at it, it's empty. Half of this is not there, and it is 2 years old, 3 years old.
It sounds like a fiasco to me.
Because
here we are, and it's clear. There's some things which are very clear. It's not if, ands, or maybes. It's that these are the lines that actually should be followed in a proper budget line making process. But then we come and we bring it to Parliament, where the decisions for public good are supposed to be made. But then it's not happening because you're saying your hands are tied, we can't do anything.
It's after the event. You've already spent the money. It's after the event. Do you understand me? So sometimes when you're budgeting and you are in a household, yeah, the first thing when the father goes and drinks the money is after the event. Now you have to make certain things. So that is what's actually happened. Now let me come back to you on this issue. If you might allow me, we need you guys, a platform, yeah? Please bear with us for a minute. The CSO, simplify that budget, deepening debate, collate and synthesize the budget information at time, yeah? Make an independent critical analysis, yes? You have your authority. I've talked to you many times about this, and I'm doing it again. Bring out new information to budget decision making, even teachers. Training expertise directly, legislation as well as others, budget accountability through analysis and dissemination to the people, make it simple so they understand. When do you have to do this? There are 4 stages. If you miss one, you guys come late. Start at the drafting stage, when it's being drafted, the budget policy. That's normally closed. That's where the opportunity for CSOs can come and be initiative, lobbying, etc., and the ability to bring new information onto public debate. This public debate they don't have. They just sit at KICC, 5 of them, and they decide. Then, it happens. You call many people, but few people turn up, and even the PS, nobody comes. Then there's a legislative section. That's the first comprehensive site we ever have of the budget. Be with us at that time. At that time, not be with us. Start your debate. Like we were doing other things. Like you used to do you used to keep us on track on our CDF. Yeah. Then the implementation stage, the legislative stage is where you want to build budget literacy and training among the people. Public. Start making a noise. Yeah. Then we come to the implementation stage. That's too late, executive function. You normally come there at the implementation stage. This 2 days ago, I had a meeting I had a discussion with the IMF guy. Yeah,
Tobias.
yeah. I don't know him. I've not met him. The one time in the 10th Parliament, we used to have the World Bank and the IMF coming to us. And you know what they said? We are bankers. We are bankers. We look at it, but we have to listen to the noise. And the noise we made last time, it's very much in the ears.
Still in their ears.
So why have they gone to the bond?
Okay, let's
Now
take a
I'm going to come there. I'm going to come there.
We'll
I'm
come
coming
there.
Bond.
Okay, let's take a quick commercial break and then we'll come back and then
I'll tell
look
you
at
why
this.
we're going to the bond.
Why are we going to the bond?
And who is the bond?
And what Churchill said previously. What did we do with the previous one?
Now, what is
And
the
how are we
bond
going
as
to
well?
make sure that this one actually does make sense, if it will? In the room with Collins Ogutu, an economist, as well as Kisumu East MP, Shakil Shabir, and saying, okay, so where are we with this? It seems that some hands are tied here and there. So, Wajiro, Shakil says you're coming to the party too late. This noise we're making, these questions that we're asking, is too late in the game, and that maybe Parliament needed some hand-holding previously.
Well, not hand-holding, because Parliament is the holder of the purse and they have their responsibility. But what he's saying is true, that as civil society, we haven't mobilized the citizens to put pressure. So there's a failure on two fronts, and we're not saying two wrongs make a right. We need to right this. In that, Parliament is being bought. They're in the pocket of the executive. There are very few who stand up and say no. On the other hand, we have become very technical in our engagement. We come late to the party. We need to change the game. This is why we are creating the Okoa Uchumi platform. And I think this is an agenda that we've already started mobilizing towards. My question when we went on break is, does the government have the authority to float this bond under the present BPS, or are they waiting to approve the BPS of 2022, which is currently under discussion? The BPS is being prepared now.
That's correct. And this is now you need to talk.
So is the green bond in 2022 or is it in 2021?
What on earth is a BPS?
Okay, so
Budget policy statement.
It is the annual plan of the government, annual spending and revenue plan of the government. Once it's approved, actually Parliament is a sideshow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
So
it gives constitutional cover to the Treasury to borrow or implement anything in there.
So does
is this green
government
bond
have the authority
in-
at this moment to float this bond?
When you're talking about the green bond, that's for the next financial year, and for the budget policy statement, it gives its outlines for the next financial year. So this is beginning July next year, and also up all the way, I think, up to June 2025. So I think it's 3 or 4 fiscal years ahead. So it gives you the numbers of where the Eurobond for the next financial year will be. So when you talk about the green bond, that's for the next financial year. That's what they have articulated it. If you look at the budget policy statement that was passed in February this year, and which had the numbers for the current financial year, it also had Eurobonds and also these liability management operations that we talk about. And now that we've talked about green bond sovereign issuance, right now I think the currency out there is all about environmental, social, and governance issues bonds. So that's taken a momentum in the international markets. So I think it makes sense from that perspective to issue a green bond, at least geared towards green projects. But then the question is, do we have like a portfolio of green projects that needs to be funded? If you're looking at 105 billion to be to finance green projects, is there a portfolio of that? And I remember the Finance Committee, when it passed the budget policy statement, that was for last year, and they also have recommendations that needs to be adhered to. One of the things that they put out clearly is that the government needs to give a list of all the projects that will be financed, be it domestic debt or external debt. So when we talk about the green bond, we need to see a portfolio of the green projects that need to be financed. We might end up greenwashing, this risk of greenwashing. We just put like, oh, it's a green bond, but then it ends up not getting into the green projects.
But is that Churchill, is that what is most likely to happen? Because if we're going by just our history,
Yes.
this is something we've discussed here with Honorable Shakir on many occasions. We are told this beautiful story of what this money is intended for. And then when you follow the trail, you're shocked and surprised that the money doesn't actually end up where it is you were told.
A perfect example is the infrastructure bonds. So the government issues bonds on a monthly basis, and then there are some specific bonds that are specifically called infrastructure bonds. So the idea
Like
behind
for the Kamarar Dam and the other one.
Yes.
now for the domestic bonds, yeah.
Yes.
So the idea before used to give, even in the prospectus, if you go to the Central Bank of Kenya website, they gave a prospectus for all the bond issues that they are targeting to issue. So for the infrastructure bonds, up until I think 2016, 2017, they used to at least specify the projects that will benefit, or the sectors. This is either roads, energy, or water projects that will benefit from the infrastructure bond issues. Remember that infrastructure bond issues is issued to the domestic market, and those bonds fly off the shelves. They're issued in 1 week. They're looking at the issues that were done in January. They're looking for 50 billion. The amount that they received was 125 billion, just telling you the interest that people have. But then if you drill down to the specifics, which infrastructure bonds were funded by these infrastructure bonds that was issued in January this year, April this year, or even August this year, that's where opacity comes in. And I'm afraid that even if you get into this green bond, sovereign green bond issues, that will also be the sad story that will come. Yes, issuing of green bond, but what are the projects that will benefit from that? And that needs to be clear from the
Where
onset.
does this money go to? Because surely it's a lot of money. There must be a footprint somewhere.
Please ask me what a bond is.
Again.
It's an easier question to answer. There's this account we hear of and we see in the Auditor General
Please
report
ask me
called
what
the
the bond is.
Exchequer account.
Okay,
Please
Shakil,
let me answer to you.
what is a bond?
The Eurobond?
Why
I've
are
done
we-
my research.
Yeah.
Is a market made up of, I'm going to read this, investors, bankers and borrowers. That they come to, they come together onto a market and they say, I have some money, I want to invest. I stole it from here,
Okay.
or whatever, they don't tell you. The Eurobond offers autonomy, offers anonymity. It offers also a haven for
So
tax.
it's a
tax
safe place
haven.
to hide.
It's a
if-
tax haven.
Yeah.
So you have
Anonymity. and
anonymity.
tax
It
haven.
offers anonymity, and it isn't what you think it is. It isn't the government of Europe or Poland or wherever
It's
giving
money
a
from
bond.
wherever.
It is it's the organizers is the European market, money market, EU money market. There's a book written by somebody on this issue, and when they were trying to stabilize the euro, when the Poland, etc., they are the ones who destroyed and then saved Spain and others.
And Greece.
That's when, remember I talked about Shylock. Yes. This is a Shylocking of money. Now, the reason they don't care where you spend the money is because there's such strict penalties and charges.
So the focus is actually on the penalties and charges.
And then, yes, and then also, they get money. Let's say I have money, and I have money sitting in Switzerland, and I have a money market operator. So somebody helps me, and like some of our politician friends, I'm some so-called very smart guy. You see them here, very smartly dressed and whatever. A money market operator. I don't want to give you names. And they go and they sit in Mauritius. They sit in no
Collins?
no, Mauritius is the closest
I'll
they
say-
have to,
I'll say Collins,
to hide
not
their money.
Churchill.
Yeah, and if you go to Mauritius, you'll find these guys or wherever, and they will tell you, look, let's so and so is putting together a package for Kenya. Yeah, so what you do? Let's put some money there. So you take your money anonymously to that organizer. JP Morgan, Citibank, this and that, they take their percentage up front. They take your money. They're investing your money, so they take a percentage from you. They're lending it to me, they take a percentage from me. Then they go and insure it. Then they go and make sure that it's in arbitration. and then they'll lend you the money. So the money, which is probably, I'm being cynical, the Eurobond, first Eurobond, we went to America. Now let's find out where our politicians were at that time. They had actually visited, they'd been out there. Second Eurobond, the main boys, where the big money is, where were they? Third Eurobond, where were they? Fourth Eurobond, who was in the United States recently?
Okay, so in about a
So
minute.
what I'm trying to suggest, you have what if money market operators. I'm not doing it. I don't know about them. But there's somebody saying, listen, we have to reinvest that money that was yours, so to make more money. But there's this Eurobond. Oh, it's our money, our country. But I can't bring it back. That is what we said the STAR initiative, Stolen Asset Recovery. Said, bring us the money back. We'll reinvest it in infrastructure.
Okay,
Less than
Shakil,
2%
so I have to
comes
ask you, but even as time runs out, I have to ask you, and in a minute, you said it's starting late. What then is required to be done right now to either stop you're saying it's too late. In the next one that could come up, what needs to be done right now
Make a noise
to have
now.
accountability as a clear and present necessity?
These are bankers. Tell them that things are not good here, and we as the people of Kenya don't approve this thing. You've got all your things fine. You're going to take us to the cleaners, fine. But we are, you're going to come to us, huh? It's not that you're going to come and take our asset, take it and sell it somewhere else. Yeah, it's our country. You cannot take our soil away from us. You can't take this and that. But any banker is scared. Yeah, any banker is scared. If you keep quiet, you are like Sherlock, right? If you, then they want their pound of flesh. We are saying you can't take it, but without taking our blood. That sort of thing, if you know Merchant of Venice. But what I'm trying to suggest is this Eurobond is a cartel of people, maybe even, not even Kenyans, but others as well, who have looted money and put it somewhere. And they now need to have it returned. Because if you loot money and put it somewhere, it's only the Swiss and the Mauritius
can
and
use
others. No, where is Mauritius?
Churchill, this
No.
guy's on your case, isn't
Right.
No, why is Mauritius buying all the assets in Kenya?
Thank you very
Everything.
much, Shakil. I think clearly a conversation that needs to continue, and we have to say thank you for joining us in the room this morning. Churchill Ogutu, Shakil Shabir, thank you for being part of this conversation this morning. Is Eurobond 5 the way to go in this country? And I think clearly from this, no.